I'm 77. I've been teaching now. Next year will be 50 years. And over time, I made my volunteering work part of my profession. So I normally teach conflict resolution and human rights because I mostly spend time in Israel-Palestine. There's a lot of need to do this kind of work. So eventually I retrained myself as an academic, and I was for 21 years director of the first Peace University Research Center in the Middle East called the Harry Truman, the president. So I got to teach more conflict resolution. I was for many years one of the directors of Amnesty International worldwide, with many years of supervising the work of Amnesty International Latin America. Spent a sabbatical in London, in the headquarters, working there. So I made human rights part of my teaching. So I do what I think I like to do, and I get paid instead of going to voluntarily. And I also think I'm doing something useful instead of teaching. Probably my training, my PhD from the Sorbonne was diplomatic history of Israel-Palestine in the First World War. So, I don't know that that's so important for the world today as human rights and conflict transformation. And nonviolence, in fact, in my case, started looking at your age long ago, but in my age, the last of the three fields. And it was, I would say, a bit accidental. I've been already commuting with UCLA and Hebrew University of Jerusalem, the Peace Center. And I was, after Jimmy Carter, very involved in trying to teach human rights. Jimmy Carter declared human rights to be the core of U.S. foreign policy. And the question of nonviolence came to me through a professor in Boston called Gene Sharp. I was worried about the level of violence that in our conflict, Israel-Arab conflict, we had a war every 10 years, 48, 56, 67, 73. And also the Palestinians that came after 67 keen to become a state of their own and not to be part of Jordan or part of different Arab countries, Lebanon and so on. They wanted to be a state like Israel. So I got in the Peace Center, got to know many Palestinians, and there was nothing really dealing with nonviolence. I mean, people had some work on human rights organizations, peace organizations, but nonviolence, there was not much, or nothing, to be honest. So comes 1988, long ago, and the Palestinians, for the first time in the West Bank and Gaza, I don't know if you can imagine the map of Israel. Then on the east we have a territory that used to be Jordan, and they came under Israeli occupation in 1967 in a war called the Six-Day War. And on the coastal area next to Egypt, there were Palestinians in a kind of refugee camp in a place called Gaza. So they were always hoping to get the support of the Arab countries, but they were defeated in several wars. Then they were expecting to get the support of the umbrella organization called the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO. But I mean, the occupation went on, and the Israelis were really not repressing at that time. They were just in need of cheap labor, and they were allowed to travel everywhere to go to the sea. So they felt, occupation, we call it benign occupation compared with what happened in the Arab countries in the neighborhood. So everything was quiet. Nobody thought there would be an explosion of the claim for independence, which happens in 1988. And at that time, the idea that it should be a nonviolent one came from different sources, including a Palestinian who was the founder of the organization that we are working with called Mubarak Awad. Mubarak Awad in Washington, D.C. was a disciple of a professor from Boston called Gene Sharp, perhaps the most advanced or most serious scholar who spent his life studying, promoting, and also being active in trying to implement nonviolent action and so on. And it is through Gene Sharp that when I saw that the Palestinian uprising was mostly nonviolent, I say mostly because they did throw stones, which, violent, but there were no lethal weapons, which was, they didn't have it, because the Israeli, but the other thing was that they saw that perhaps addressing the Israeli Jews after all these calamities and catastrophes and the Holocaust and so on, they may be more successful if they fight, like Gandhi, non-violently, because of the nature of the Jewish experience with suffering. So they say perhaps, they say the Jews have, Jewish mother has a guilt culture, the same thing with the Jewish people. Maybe if you fight with terror, as the PLO did before, like going to a school and taking the children hostages and eventually killing many, or going to a market and putting an explosion and so on, that would be counterproductive. At that time, I, 88, director of a peace institute, got involved because I saw that it's good for everybody, obviously for the Palestinians, but also for the Israelis. And lucky me, Gene Sharp, who got me a scholarship to work with him on the issue of Palestinians talking about non-violent violence, limited violence, all kinds of adjectives that were saying we are non-violent except stone throwing, cocktail molotovs. And Gene Sharp had the idea that you cannot be excused for the comparison, half pregnant. You're either pregnant or not pregnant. I'm quoting him talking to people, so it's not that I'm using it for myself. He said, you need to show that you are completely non-violent. You cannot say I'm not violent because I don't have lethal weapons, so I only have stones, so I'm using stones. And the Palestinians obviously felt very proud that they downgraded the level of violence from going to schools or kidnapping a bus or just killing innocent civilians mostly, not fighting Israeli soldiers, but just killing innocent civilians. So to go to a level where they will be only throwing stones or occasionally a cocktail molotov was quite a change. And indeed, I recognize the change of lowering, but the question was, can you really get them to become like Gandhi? In this case, Mubarak Awad was called by the Israeli media the Palestinian Gandhi because he was saying absolute nonviolence, no stone throwing, and so on. So I thought, it would be good if I study that and help in my own way to explain also to the Palestinians, to explain to the Israelis that the level of violence has gone down 90%. And to tell the Palestinians, if you really want to be successful, you have to go 100%. You cannot be half-half, as I just said. So that's what brought me to, in addition to my interest in human rights and conflict resolution, to incorporate nonviolence. Now, I want to go a little bit into the theory simply because in my formal CV, there is not much about what I'm telling you. I just wanted to see if you want to take a class on nonviolence or you want to make a career, as I would say, where nonviolence is maybe you have two hobbies or two main things, and one of it is nonviolence. I don't know whether you can make a living unless you are teaching nonviolence in a university, but to make it the main part of, so that's what happened to me. And it happened to me because the Palestinian, I was teaching at UCLA many years, I did teach there, I commute with Hebrew University, I said, and I commute between a university called University of Haifa. Haifa is a beautiful coastal city in Israel, and University of Maryland College Park, kind of semester. So when I was at UCLA, Gene Sharp came there Mubarak Awad has a sister, other sister who lived there. So they arranged for us to meet. And they told me, Jim told me, look, Mubarak was expelled from Israel so when he was young. Now he wants to come back. Can you protect him? Me? I had no authority. So I got, from the day one that he came back to Jerusalem, very close, and we had decided that anything we do to be successful would be nice to do it together. So the occupier and the occupied, the top dog and the underdog. So we don't really have to just let the Palestinians, as in India or in anywhere else, the underdog, as you probably saw. I like to believe you. Who did see the film Gandhi? Raise your hand. Oh no.
Raise your hand high. So.
It's only in the
Only one?
I can't believe that you have so many people here and you don't show them the film Gandhi. It's on Netflix. It's on everywhere. I am a teacher, so I take the responsibility to ask you. Look, I volunteer to come here.
Yeah.
Promise me they're going to get a film called Gandhi.
I promise you they will,
Now you
especially
are my
since most of
witness.
them stay up late watching
My
Netflix
witness.
anyway.
It's a long film, more than 2 hours. I mean, extraordinary film. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
I
I
mean,
watched it a long time ago, but I remember it.
well, you see, the proof is that she remembers it even a long time after. So anyway, they called him a couple of things he did. I hope you don't mind that I give you a narration first, and then I go a little bit more into theory, because you know, it's life is the way I'm telling you. It's not always books. So Mubarak, I hope you did. You bring Mubarak here? Did you bring Mubarak here?
Mubarak hasn't come here. He's been chatted here, so he's called in and seen everyone at the beginning of the semester, but he hasn't physically come here.
Okay, now that he got me to come here, Mubarak, I'm getting to come here too. He's really a wonderful human being, and anyway, you will meet him. So 2 promises, Marcelo.
Yes.
Don't let me down.
I will, I promise you I
Okay.
will.
I'm leaving tomorrow for Israel, so you're my witness. I mean, I will not be able to check on it.
And this film is, pretty much.
Okay. It's a record now, film also, you know. Anyway, Mubarak comes to Jerusalem. He rents a small office and he puts a Palestinian flag. At that time, the Israeli government called it the PLO flag. The PLO was Palestinian Liberation Organization, was considered to be by everybody a terrorist organization, not only by, say, the U.S. At that time, Reagan, but you know, they were terrorists. I mean, most of the victims were innocent civilians, if you want to call it this way. I mean, they were not fighting an army; they were fighting innocent civilians. They were killing innocent civilians. So comes Mubarak, and the Israeli government forbade to display the Palestinian flag. They called it the PLO flag. So it was like Hezbollah, if you know today, or ISIS and so on. And Mubarak comes and he puts from the window of his office a Palestinian flag. Well, that's one of the things that he says, you know, civil disobedience. He knew it was forbidden. But then the police came and they say, you have to remove the flag. And he said, well, that's my flag. He said, yes, your flag, but it's not permitted. But it's not permitted for the Jews. But, you know, he argued and argued. So every time he would put it, the police would come. It was like a cat and mouse, you know, these kind of things started. Then they say they uprooted olive trees that the Palestinian villagers planted in their area, but it was without permission. So the government came and uprooted, they planted the tree, and the Israeli government uprooted it. So they made a demonstration in Jerusalem. So Mubarak came and asked for a permission. So he got a permit for, say, for 100 people, but he came with dogs and with sheep and with horses, and I started to walk through the streets of Jerusalem. I thought he had a permit. But the horses, excuse me, shitting around all the place. Police was crazy. They said, what's this guy doing? And so they said, do you have a permit? Say, I do have a permit. Show the permit. So they say, well, but this permit is 100 people. Yeah, but these people have these animals when they work in the countryside, so they have to take care of the animals. It's not written that it is forbidden to march with animals, and things like that, and eventually with the flag, they fought it, and they fought it till the time where, for instance, there were some Jewish friends like mine that were very supportive of this kind of contesting or authority, as I'm saying, on small things. So there was a time where they could not have the flag no more. For instance, Mubarak asked all Palestinian households to put the Palestinian flag, but they were afraid at the beginning, so it didn't succeed. So he said, those who want, so there were kids walking together with the colors of the Palestinian flag, each one a sweater, it is green, white, and red. So they will be walking like, the trees, and there will be like 4 or 5 different rows. So everybody knew it was a flag, but there were actually sweaters were in different colors. And then eventually there was a guy who liked to jog, a Jew and a Palestinian. So they called it jogging for peace. And they had the Palestinian flag and the Israeli flag, it's two. And the police would try to stop them, but they were joggers and they were running very fast. Eventually, there was a minister of defense who said, okay, let's go with the flag. Let it be, once a flag is not a danger flag, and so on. So there were small things he was doing, a library on wheels for kids. I have a suggestion. Look, I speak my mind, you realize. Those who are tired, when I'm tired, I'm falling asleep, especially if it happens in the first row, I get so disappointed. Maybe I'm so boring, I'm trying to be. So I suggest, no problem. Put some cold water in your wrist. Go out, brush your face, and come back. Because I get disoriented if somebody is falling asleep in front of me. So I don't name anybody, but maybe 1 or 2 or 3 that because of this is what we call in Latin America siesta time. People like to sleep at the time of the day. So I hope I'm not boring now. So don't feel you are struggling because it will be not very successful. The best thing, speaking from experience, myself, falling asleep, is to put some cold water in your wrist. Okay. Go back. Mubarak became a troublemaker for the Israeli authorities, and he had quite a follow of maybe 100 Palestinians. The library on wheels will go a very old Volkswagen truck going from one village to another, lending books on nonviolence in Arabic. So it was really moving on, and it became quite well known. And I invited him to talk to the university, and he was quite active. And many Jewish friends felt that he was doing the right thing to persuade the Israelis that the Palestinians have the right to have a country of their own. So at that time, the Prime Minister of Israel was extremely right-wing. Somebody called it Yitzhak Shamir. They checked out, he came into Israel, and he came into Israel through American passport. He married an American woman, studied here, then when he went back, he had no Israeli document because the Israeli embassy would not give him a consulate in Washington. So he came back with an American passport. Tourists can stay only 3 months without a visa. They have to leave and then come back. But he was born in Jerusalem, so he had a Jerusalem ID. So eventually, because he was such a troublemaker, the Minister of Interior said, okay, we don't want this guy here. We will arrest him pending deportation. And they put him in a detention center in the center of the city of Jerusalem, believe it or not. A very old building that was the police headquarters, and next to it there was a small detention center. And his wife called me and said Mubarak has been arrested. I called my young students and others and said, what do we do? How can we help? My students said, maybe we have to put ourselves, we put our, what do you call it? We tie ourselves to the gates of the prison and we stay there and they will, and I was already a little bit, older, so I don't feel myself doing this kind of thing. And then his wife tells me Mubarak started the hunger strike in his prison. And I said, well, that's perfect. We start the hunger strike in the parking lot opposite the prison. And that's what we did. I was the one first to do it, and then other people joined. And in no time, in the center of Jerusalem, there was Palestinian on a hunger strike, and outside, Arabs and Jews, maybe 20 people coming and going. I stayed 7 days on a hunger strike, and he was inside. I couldn't see his face, but I knew that he had the iron of the window, so he knew. And it was on the media, international media. I wrote an article for the Jerusalem Post called "Why is the Jew fasting for an Arab?" You see, why is the Jew fasting? So it became really. I had an article in the Washington Post, in the Los Angeles Times, all over the place, and it took a momentum, a serious momentum. But so the Supreme Court of Justice took the issue, and they did something that was half-half. They say, we don't want to pass judgment about the wisdom of the decision to deport Mubarak Awad out of Israel, but we do agree that the Minister of Interior has the right to expel somebody whose visa expired, which was technically true. He was like a year without a visa, you see, or more than a year, and it was only for 3 months. So he came to Washington. And also I started to teach at College Park in Maryland. So we continued our relationship, and if you Google what Kaufman, you'll see so many things we wrote, we taught, South Africa, Canada, and so on.